Þolfall, accusative case. Samtal 1. Á kaffihúsi. Góðan daginn. Hvað má bjóða þér? Góðan dag. Ég ætla að fá kaffibolla og eina litla smáköku. Einn kaffibolla og eina smáköku. Já, takk. Svartan eða hvítan? Bara svartan, takk. Bíddu, má ég fá kanilsnúð líka? Að sjálfsögðu, gjörðu svo vel. Kærar þakkir. Inngangur að falli. Introduction to case. Case, fall, is a way of marking relationships between various elements in a sentence. Case can indicate things such as the agent or doer of an action, normally the subject. Patient, the undergoer or normally the direct object of an action. And the recipient of an action, which is also known as the indirect object. The following word classes can be marked for case or declined. This process is known as declension. Pronouns, nouns, adjectives, and the numbers 1 to 4, and then any numbers derived from 1 to 4, so 21, 22, 23, 24. Those numbers all decline. So Icelandic has 4 cases or fall, each with a typical function. The first one we know already. Everything we've seen so far more or less has been in the nefnifall or nominative case, which normally indicates the agent or the subject of the sentence. In Icelandic, the subject can sometimes be in a different case, but most of the time it's in nefnifall. Then we have Þolfall, which is the subject of this video. Þolfall, the accusative. This normally indicates the patient of a verb, so the thing that is having the action done to it. This is most often the direct object, but it can sometimes be the indirect object. So it's better to think of it as the patient, the thing that is receiving the action. Then we have Þolfall, or dative case, which indicates the recipient of an action. So that is also known as the indirect object. That's the normal use of the dative case. Then finally we have eignafall, or genitive case, which is normally used to mark possession. That's kind of like the apostrophe S in English, which comes from an old genitive case that Old English used to have. So for now, we're not going to worry about Þolfall and eignafall. We will come back to Þolfall, and actually eignafall we won't see at all in this course, but instead we're going to focus on Þolfall. So let's go back to Samtal 8. And let's have a look at the different case forms that we see there. So the first one we have highlighted is actually þér, which is a dative case form of þú, you. And that's in the sentence, hvað má bjóða þér? What can I offer you? To you. Because you are the recipient of the offer. We won't worry about the dative for now, so we'll skip over that and we'll go straight on to the accusatives. The first one we have there is kaffibolla in ég ætla að fá kaffibolla, and then we have eina litla smáköku. So we can see there that all of those words, kaffibolla, which is kaffibolli in the nominative, and then eina litla smáköku, that whole phrase in the nominative would be ein lítil smákaka. They have all changed to indicate the accusative case. So ein, the number 1, lítill, the adjective little, smákaka, which is also a noun. The reason they're in the accusative is because of the verb fá, to get, and verbs are said to govern a case in Icelandic. That means that the things that come after that verb will be in a certain case. vowel governs the accusative case, so kaffibolla, eina litla smáköku is all accusative. This is actually then continued through the next few lines of the conversation, because the waiter, the þjónn, replies, einn kaffibolla og eina smáköku, still in the accusative case, and this is because of the verb vowel in the sentence before. So that's actually being carried through. And then to the next question, svartan eða hvítan. Those are two adjectives that you should recognise by now. The endings will be new though, so svartan or hvítan, those are the accusative adjective endings. And then that continues all the way to bara svartan takk, still all because of that vowel in the second phrase there. And then we have a new sentence, bíddu, má ég fá kanilsnúð líka. Kanilsnúð is from kanilsnúður, cinnamon bun, which is also in the accusative, but this time it's because of the phrase má ég fá there in that sentence. So that shows you kind of where the accusative case would be used and what kind of context. Now we will move on to look at how it's formed. So we have seen the pronouns on the left already in Þolfall. Ég, þú, hann, hún, etc. On the right, we see how the pronouns are in the accusative, Þolfall. So we have mig, þig, hann, hana, hán, það. And then we have these two strange ones, okkur and ykkur. And finally, þá, þær and þau. Some pronouns are actually the same in the nominative and accusative. Those ones are shown here in black. Most notable of those are the neuter singular hán and það, and the feminine and neuter plural þær and þau. This is a pattern that we will see again in the nouns, so the neuter singular being the same in the nominative and accusative, and the feminine and neuter plural being the same in the nominative and accusative. This pronoun system is kind of reminiscent of the one that we have in English. English used to have a fully fledged case system. All pronouns, adjectives, nouns used to have different case endings. In English, the nouns and the adjectives lost that case marking, but we do have remnants of it in our pronoun system. This is why English has I and me, he and him, she and her, we and us, they and them, and so on. So you can see some kind of similarities in some of them there, mig, me. Icelandic does this, but it doesn't just do it in the pronoun system, it does it for all nouns, all adjectives, and all numbers. So how do we actually form the accusative of nouns? Remember the categories strong and weak. Strong nouns being ones that end in a consonant, and weak ones being ones that end in a vowel. Now those categories become really important because strong nouns and weak nouns behave differently when declined. There are actually some similarities across the genders in how the strong and weak nouns behave, but it's really important to know both the gender of a noun and then whether it's a strong noun or a weak noun. For strong masculine nouns, we actually have the same rule for all of these words, even though they all have different endings. So the rule is just to remove the ending. So hestur, læknir, bíll, and steinn, they would become hest, lækni, bíll, steinn. So they just lose that final part of the word, the ending there. As with adjectives, the trick is knowing which part is the ending and which part is the stem. For nouns ending in ur, that's simple enough, you just take off the ur. For nouns ending in the ear vowel is actually part of the stem and it's only the that is taken away. even though we identify these nouns by the ear ending, the letter R is the only bit that's actually removed there. So that gives us likne. For nouns ending in double L or double N, the second consonant is the removable part of the ending. This is quite similar to how adjectives work, remember. So bíll becomes bíl, steinn becomes stein. Notice the difference in pronunciation between the nominative and accusative in these last two. Bíll, bíl. Steinn, stein. For weak masculine nouns, the ear ending changes to R. Penni, penna. Lampi, lampa. We also have to think about the definite article. The definite article for the masculine accusative is actually the same as in the nominative, so it's e and n. This is added to the accusative form of the noun as shown here. So hesturinn, hestin. Læknirinn, læknin. Bíllinn, bílinn. Steinninn, steinin. Pennin, pennan. Lampinn, lampan. As in the nominative, the ear is only added if the noun doesn't already end in a vowel. So hestin, as opposed to læknin, lækni already ends in a vowel. So we don't need to add another one. Pennan, penna ends in a vowel, so we don't need to add the ear. Pennan. Strong feminine nouns are the same in the nominative and accusative. No change at all. Rós, rós. Mjólk, mjólk. Menntun, menntun. The main exception is the group of nouns ending in ing. I say main exception because a lot of female names in Icelandic are irregular. They have different forms in the nominative and the accusative. But most of the time we don't have to worry about it, except with these ones that end in ing. So æving will become ævingu. It gets an ö on the end. For weak feminine nouns, the ending changes from a to ö, so from kona to konu. So for nouns with r in their stem, like kaka, this actually means that you'll get a u shift. So kaka becomes köku. When we were looking at feminine adjectives, we couldn't see the ö that was causing the u shift. But when we looked at verbs, for example, verbs like tala, which in the present tense would be við tölum in the we form, við tölum, we get that u shift. We're seeing that same thing happening again here in the feminine nouns. So we have an ö next to an r, ö next to r, which causes the r to change to ö, kaka, köku. Then we have our definite article for the feminine accusative, which is ina. Note the similarity to the accusative form of the pronoun hún, which is hana, so you have that na ending again. This is added to the accusative form of the noun as shown here, so even if the noun itself doesn't change, the definite article does. Rósin, rósina. Mjólkin, mjólkina. Menntunin, menntunina. And ævingin, ævinguna. Konan, konuna. Kakan, kökuna. As always, ear is only added if the noun doesn't already end in a vowel. So the ones that do end in a vowel in their accusative form, ævingu na, konu na, kökuna, and so on. The neuter nouns are probably our favourite ones because they don't change at all when going from nominative to accusative. This mirrors what happens in the pronoun system. So það and hán, they're the same in the nominative and in the accusative. Nouns do the same thing. So land, land. Skip, skip. Tré, tré. That's strong neuter. Weak neuter is the same. There's actually no change. Auga, auga. hjarta, hjarta. So it becomes really important then to know whether a noun ending in a is feminine or neuter, because if it's feminine, then it's going to have that change to ö, kaka, köku. But if it's neuter, then it's not going to change. It's going to stay with the a, so it'll be öga, öga. As I mentioned before, the weak neuter is a very, very small group. They're mostly body parts. There's maybe less than 15 or so of these words in Icelandic. So you can probably learn them off by heart and then assume that any other word that you see that ends in a is feminine. The same goes for the definite article in the neuter in that it doesn't change from nominative to accusative. Everything here is the same as in the nominative. Landið, landið. Skipið, skipið. Tréð, tréð. Remember, tréð is a little bit irregular and that doesn't get the e in its definite article. Augað, augað. Hjartað, hjartað. No difference at all there from the nominative case. So finally, we have this slide which sums up the main rules for making nouns accusative. At the top next to each gender is the accusative definite article. So karlkyn, the article is enn, kvenkyn it's ena, and hvorkyn it's ið. Underneath we have the rules for strong nouns. So for masculine, that rule is removing the ending, giving us hest, lækni, bíl, stein. For strong feminine and neuter nouns, there's no change, except for those feminines ending in ing, which change to ingu, ævingu. Okay, but everything else the same. Rós, mjólk, menntun, land, skip, tré. Amongst the weak nouns in the row below that, we have the masculine ending, which changes from e to a, penna, lampa. The feminine from a to u, with any u shift if applicable, konu, köku. And then finally we have our neuter, which doesn't change at all, auga, hjarta.